Hey Lisa, what type of spiritual practices should I be doing? It's a question that I get asked all the time, along with, hey Lisa, am I doing the right type of spiritual practice? So, whether you're into Eastern or Western forms of spirituality, there are literally hundreds of different types of spiritual practices that you can be doing. But are they the right ones for you? Stay tuned to find out. Hey there, yogis and karmic warriors. Welcome to my channel where I talk about how to live an extraordinary life by practicing time-proven and tested teachings of yoga wisdom traditions. I am your host, Lisa Engles, and the goal of this channel is super simple. It's just to make it easier than ever before for anyone to find happiness and fulfillment in their everyday life by using the wisdom teachings that have been handed down to us for millennia, and sometimes to dispel popular myths that are out there, especially in the New Age spirituality world, which hold us back without our even knowing. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and to click on that notification button because I put out videos just like this one on a regular basis. One of the biggest challenges that my clients come to me with is that they find themselves stuck and repeating the same lessons over and over again in life. They're frustrated. Maybe they're at a loss because most of them have already done the work. They've done years of therapy or coaching or going to workshops or spiritual practices, whatever it is, but they're still struggling with the same unhealthy relationships, or they feel like they should be further along in their life than they are personally or professionally or spiritually. So if you can relate to any of that, then I invite you to head on over to www.karmicwarrior.com to grab my free report on why you keep getting handed that one lesson in life, even if you've spent years doing the work. In this free report, I reveal to you the secret about harnessing the law of karma in order to finally break free of that one lesson so that you can finally live a freer, fuller life right now. I put the link in the description below. Okay, friends, it's time to talk about spiritual practice, particularly what type of spiritual practice should you be doing? Like I said in the intro, it's a question that I get asked all the time by my clients, by my students. They want to know, am I doing the right spiritual practice? And it's a really, really good question to ask. In fact, if you're not asking that question, you should be asking that question. There are so many types of spiritual practices. There are so many types of prayer and meditation. You can do visualizations, guided visualizations. You can do relaxations, guided relaxations. You can chant different Vedic chants or chant bija mantras. You can journal. Journaling is a big spiritual practice for a lot of people. A lot of people have gratitude practices. It's a huge thing and it's a wonderful practice. If you're not doing a gratitude practice, that is one I highly recommend. But other people, like myself, feel like their running or their hiking or their gardening is a spiritual practice. I always say running is my spiritual cardiotherapy. So mindfulness, another type of spiritual practice, right? But which one is the right one for you? So this is a very, very good question, as I already said. And the first place to begin is by asking yourself, what is my goal? Why am I doing my spiritual practice? What is the goal of my spiritual practice? So just like an athlete who, needs to do certain things in their workouts in order to be able to compete, go to be at game day, be on in their A game, or, on race day, be able to perform at their highest level for that race. They need to be doing the right workouts. They need to be doing the right practices. If you've been with me for any length of time, you've heard me say this analogy before, so forgive me if you've heard this one before. But, if you're a marathoner, you're not going to do a sprinter's workout. If you're a sprinter, you're not going to do a marathoner's workout. They're both runners, but very, very different goals for their running. So you, in the same way, need to know, what is the goal for my spiritual practice? So in yoga, since that's what we're here for, because I'm all about yoga and what yoga tells us to do. In yoga, spiritual practice implies two things. You know what? I also noticed that I do this air quote thing all the time, so sorry if it annoys you. I was watching one of my videos and realizing I do the air quote thing a lot. That was a side note. Okay, let's get back to spiritual practice now. All right, so spiritual practice in yoga implies two things. First, it implies awakening to your true nature. In other words, you may have heard of it referred to as self-realization. And the other thing that spiritual practice implies is liberation, liberating ourselves from our mind-created suffering. All other practices support those two goals, right? So it's those two specific types of practices, awakening practices and liberation practices, or those are the two goals of yoga. So in yoga, you're always looking to do practices that are either an awakening practice or a liberation practice. And all other practices just support those two goals and those two types of practices. For instance, relaxation is huge. Relaxation practices are so important because they can help you release and do help you to release tension and tightness in your body and your mind. And they're really relaxation types of practices are preparatory practices for meditation in the same way that concentration practices are super, super important, but they're preparatory practices for meditation because concentration practices, for instance, focusing on the breath and following the breath with the mind and using the breath as the impetus for concentration helps us to focus the mind, and we do that because we have to have a focused mind for meditation. But concentration practices, breathing practices, just following and being mindful of following the breath is not going to get you anywhere except a focused mind, which is good, but it's not the end goal. See what I mean? Hopefully you do. Another example, dancing. I mean, there was a period of my life where I would always go to Five Rhythms dance, now called or often called ecstatic dance. Different modalities, I know, but you get what I mean. There's a whole community of dancers. Dance is so important because it's so cathartic. It helps us to release somatically stuff that's inside of us, but it's not necessarily the end of your spiritual practice. It's very, very helpful and it supports awakening and liberation practices, but it might not be the only thing you should be doing. So if you are interested, if you're on the yogic path and you are interested in awakening and liberation, which again, need I say it again, is the goal of the yogic path, then you need to do awakening practices and liberation practices. Awakening practices are what we would call spiritual inquiry or self-inquiry practices, practices that help us to discover who am I, answer that question, who am I, but also contemplative types of meditation, meditations where you are reading scriptures or writings from the mystics or saints, and sitting, not trying to figure out what the writings mean, but sitting with them and having a contemplative type of meditation, trying to marinate in the words, in the teachings. So that's awakening practices. And then you have liberation practices, and liberation practices are those types of practices that help you to stop identifying with your body and your mind. Those types of practices that help you to not replace beliefs, not to change beliefs, but to transcend your beliefs. Because on the yogic path, the mind is the obstacle. Your thoughts and your beliefs are the obstacle. So unlike personal development or personal improvement, self-improvement, where you're working at the mental level, trying to change your beliefs and your thoughts to more positive ones, on the yogic path, we're saying, well, changing your beliefs is a stepping stone. I always say stories are stepping stones, but that's not the end. New beliefs are not going to get you out of town. They're going to get you across town, off usually, but not out of town. So liberation practices are going to, again, help you to stop identifying with your body, with your mind. They're going to help you to transcend your beliefs. So if you are looking for more guidance and direction, I'm going to put some links in this below this video to some guided meditations that I have that you can do. Some meditations for awakening, some meditations for liberation. And you also have the option to join me live for my meditations on Insight Timer. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description below to my Insight Timer profile, where I list all of my live meditations as well. So you can go check me out there and let me know in the comments below, what are your spiritual practices? I'd love to know. So until next time, take care and namaste.